remember this? The Las Vegas cul-de-sac, a cacophonous childhood orchestra, brown children, one sweeping cohesive tribe, lawns strewn with tricycles, basketballs bouncing from 4 driveways, slam of screen doors ringing out time and again. They were not just siblings. They were a pack, a unit. Logan, steadfast and stoic. The commander Aspen, quiet, the planner. Janelle's boys, a maelstrom of energy. Christine's girls, laughing with an energy. Growing up together, they shielded each other, forming bonds that would not be shaken in the special crucible of multiple family life, raised as a single, crazy, loving tribe. But that tribe has fractured, and now, in a stunning turn of events, one that has shaken the world of reality television. The older children have filed a dramatic lawsuit. Not for fame, not for funds, but as a last-ditch effort to prevent the youngest from being cut out of their own family. Kody's older children suing to protect their youngest siblings, a judge compelled to intervene, faced with poison isolation. Welcome back to Reality Recap, your go-to source for deep dives and hard-hitting theories about the Brown family. What you're about to hear comes from insider whispers, legal rumors, and a close look at the cracks that have split this family apart. This is the story of the sibling alienation petition. If you think family bonds are something to be fought for, and you wish to remain up to date on this volatile ever-unfolding drama, do me a solid, click that like button, subscribe to Reality Recap, and hit the bell. Don't miss a single notification. This is a struggle for the soul of the Brown family. In order to understand the gravity of this lawsuit, you must understand what was lost. We must travel back, not merely to the sunny Vegas days but to the beginnings of what Kody Brown insisted he was creating. One big happy family, the geometry of a breakup from cul-de-sac to Coyote Pass. The relocation to Flagstaff, Arizona was billed as a new utopia, a vow of reunion on a single large property, Coyote Pass. Kody envisioned grandkids running between homes. Back to the communal living they had once prospered from. But as it was seen by all, the vision disintegrated into a nightmare of separation and remoteness. The once close-knit 4 homes in Las Vegas, mere steps away from each other, yielded to houses spread out across the city. The dream of Coyote Pass was a desert mirage, multitudinous arguments, economic hardship, and acrid disappointment. Distance was merely the tip below it, developed something much more caustic. A profound, deliberate, emotional chasm. And at the middle of this chasm, sources say, was Kody and his 4th and sole legal wife, Robyn Brown's house. The COVID-negative pandemic did not create the Brown family cracks. It revealed them and tore them wide apart. Kody's notorious strict rules, which were allegedly in place to shield everyone, appeared to be different based on the household. Christine and Janelle's children were scolded for having jobs, getting together with friends, or being out with their significant others. Meanwhile, in Kody and Robyn's house, life continued in a strictly controlled bubble. That bubble, according to insiders, congealed into a fortress. We witnessed the agonizing arguments. We witnessed Gabe collapse, devastated that his dad had forgotten his birthday. We witnessed Garrison, a veteran of our country, being treated like little more than an angry teenager. Kody's old creed, love should be multiplied. Not divided, evolved into something uglier, loyalty above all else. And loyalty, it seemed, meant nothing short of blind submission to him and Robyn. Anyone who objected to the rules, anyone who deviated even slightly, was a traitor, even his own kids. But what happened behind the camera out of TLC's view was more deliberate, according to people who know the family. They speak of a long-term pattern, one that had started pre-pandemic, but hastened dramatically because of it. A gradual, intentional separation of the youngest children, Solomon and Ariella, from their older siblings. One source, which professed connections with a former production assistant, told it like this. It started small. Robyn would tell Christine and Janelle's kids that Saul and Ari were sleeping whenever their children needed to visit. And then came the runny-nosed excuses, how they couldn't afford to spread germs around. Eventually, there were no excuses at all. The response was always no. And worse, sometimes there was no one at all to answer. Calls and messages simply disappeared into nothing. Consider the magnitude of siblings here. Logan, Aspen, Leon, Madison, Mickelty, Hunter, Peyton, Garrison, Dayton, Gabe, Gwynlyn, Aurora, Isabel, Savannah, Brianna, and Truly. Older siblings for Solomon and Ariella. Individuals who knew them since they were born, who were carrying them around as babies, who were constants in their lives during the Las Vegas years. And gradually, one after another, their access to those little brother and sister connections got revoked. The older kids didn't give up easily. Reports suggest they tried hard, setting up sibling-only get-togethers. Only for Robyn to politely decline on behalf of Sol and Ari, always pointing to vague family plans that never seemed to involve anyone outside her own household. Holiday traditions, once the heartbeat of the Brown family, became tense and strained. We all recall that awkward gift exchange we watched on television, a pathetic imitation of the pleasant Christmas mornings they used to enjoy. Those in the know say for every cringe-worthy moment we witnessed there were dozens more rejection and unopened invitations never caught on camera. The message was not easily missed. The household referred to as the Browns was no longer one tribe. Standing in its place was a new nucleus, Kody, Robyn, and their 5 kids. Fans referred to the others as the OG-, who were being gradually pushed to the side as extended relatives, or in some instances, not a family at all. The coalition of the deposed, the war council of siblings. The breaking point was inevitable. The departure of Christine was the initial major shake. It confirmed what so many of the older children had sensed, that the family they knew was no longer, and that their father was no longer the man they admired. Janelle's breakup was the aftershock, confirming a new reality. The mothers who had spent years fostering sibling cohesion were now officially outside. And this is where our inside theory comes together, crafted from rumors and off-the-record discussions. Once their mothers departed, the grown Brown children supposedly entered into an informal but tacit understanding. Not an official sit-down initially. It started with late-night calls, secure group messages, and tearful conversations during vacation visits. Vacation visits that conveniently did not involve their father, Robyn, or the youngest children. From sources, 4 names were the pioneers of this unassuming movement. Logan, Aspen, Mickelty, and Hunter. Logan Brown, the oldest, always the reliable one, the unassuming pillar of strength. He went out of his way to avoid the limelight, building a life away from cameras. So his presence says a lot. For him to be a part of a legal battle, it had to be an ultimate last resort. Logan represents the family's original vision, its foundation that has now been washed away. His drive isn't bitterness, but responsibility. Responsibility to each sibling, particularly the youngest and weakest. Aspen Brown Thompson, the natural peacemaker. She has always been the one to bridge gaps, coordinate parties, soften her dad's rough spots. Close to her, say she spent years gently nudging Robyn to open the door and let everyone in. If Aspen is involved in this process, then diplomacy has failed. She probably has the most detailed record of all attempts made, all olive branches offered, all rejections recorded. Michael T. Brown Padron, described as outspoken and sometimes divisive, but never less than deeply devoted to family. Now a mother of 3 herself, her perspective has changed. Someone close to her network reports that seeing her children form sibling relationships has heightened her sensitivity to what Solomon and Ariella are missing out on. She views those relationships not as privileges, but as integral to a child's formation and sense of self. She adds passion and fire to the team. Hunter Brown. Similar to Logan, Hunter has embarked on a life of order and service. Previously in the Air Force, now in a career as a nurse, Hunter is well behaved. He understands the value of respect and chain of command. That is why his utter disillusionment with his dad, foreshadowed in previous episodes, says it all. With his brothers Garrison and Gabe, he personifies the group that experienced the bite of disconnection most personally. They experienced cutoffs firsthand, the 4 of them, and most of the rest of the siblings who united with them started to share information. The trend was unmistakable. This was not a case of some missed calls or a full calendar. What they witnessed resembled an intentional, methodical strategy of seclusion. The aim, they suspected, was terrifying. To redefine Solomon and Ariella's family history, to win them over to the idea that their universe started and stopped with Kody, Robyn, and Robyn's 3 older children. In this reality, their other siblings would become distant relatives, at best, or worse, distant names. The tipping point, one insider said, came via Truly. After Christine's relocation to Utah, Truly, who had long been particularly close to Solomon, asked if she could FaceTime him. Kody supposedly informed Christine that it wasn't a good time. When she pushed, he finally came around, but the call was short and uncomfortable. Solomon, typically chatty and effervescent, was distant. When Truly asked if he knew his other siblings, he looked uncertain, struggling to match the names. For the older siblings, this was a 5-alarm fire. The erasure was no longer theoretical, it was occurring. And they could no longer sit idly by. The new legal tactic, petitioning for brother and sister rights. But how do you even combat something like this? You can't make someone pick up a phone. You can't compel parents to bring a child to a family. Get together. Kody and Robyn had all the leverage. They were in control, with custody, and the law was on their side, granting them the authority to determine with whom their kids hung out. That is when the older brothers and sisters went to attorneys. And what they discovered was revolutionary, nearly unimaginable. A petition for visitation rights of siblings formulated in terms of parental alienation. In order to appreciate just how innovative this strategy is, we interviewed a legal expert we'll call Dr. Amelia Vance, a pseudonym for an actual family law consultant who wished to remain anonymous. Dr. Vance explained that sibling visitation cases are exceedingly rare. Courts are extremely reluctant to overrule a fit parent's right to raise their child as they see fit. The few precedents usually involve foster care cases or siblings separated into different custodial arrangements, like with grandparents. But for a team of adult siblings to sue for visitation with their half-siblings, who are being cared for by their biological parents, that is basically unheard of. A legal Hail Mary for the case to stand any chance. The legal team had to demonstrate 3 pillars: an attachment base. They needed to build the case that the sibling group was, for Solomon and Ariella, a first attachment unit from infancy. For children in a multifamily household where parents are split, the siblings had been their steady anchors and their job was just as essential, if not more so, than in a single-parent household. Straightforward pattern of alienation. It couldn't simply be Kody and Robyn are being unfair. They needed to demonstrate a documented deliberate attempt to break the connection between the youngest and oldest. Each avoided phone call, each rejected invitation, each excuse had to be carefully documented. Demonstrable harm. This was the greatest challenge. The siblings needed to demonstrate that the alienation wasn't only hurtful to them, but that it resulted in tangible psychological and emotional harm to Solomon and Ariella, that by excluding them from their older siblings, Kody and Robyn were taking away their heritage, their sense of self, and a crucial support system, harm with repercussions that would last forever. A legal Hail Mary. That is what this was. It was a huge effort. But after years of bottled frustration and growing trepidation that they might lose Solomon and Ariella forever, the siblings started piecing their case together, brick by painful brick. The bombshell: a petition is filed in Flagstaff. Sources say that at some point last year, the adult brothers and sisters, led by the Central Four, covertly combined their funds and hired one of Arizona's premier family law practices. The filing was not sloppy or hysterical. It was strategic, discreet, and well-timed. They knew that the moment word got out, it would set off all-out war. The petition, which was said to be entitled Petition for Sibling Visitation Rights and for the Prevention of Parental Alienation, was submitted in Coconino County Superior Court. Petitioners listed Logan Brown, Aspen Thompson, Mickelty Padron, and Hunter Brown, filing not only on their own behalf, but on behalf of their siblings as well. Respondents: Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. Imagine the second those papers reached Kody and Robyn. A process server trudging down the long driveway to their multimillion-dollar mansion, carrying a fat manila envelope. Shock giving way to incredulity, then to rage. This was not a scorned ex-wife. This was not a contract dispute with TLC. This was their own kids, their own flesh and blood. Suing them into court, a source close to Robyn's side described her reaction as nothing short of a meltdown. She saw it as betrayal at the highest level. In her mind, after everything she had endured, joining a complicated family, weathering public criticism, being labeled the villain, this was the final blow. She felt she was just shielding her little kids from chaos, from negativity in the form of siblings who had left their father behind. To Robyn's mind, Christine and Janelle had poisoned the older children against her and were now employing them as weapons in this lawsuit. Kody's response, as reported, was even more volatile for years. He had railed against patriarchy about being the rightful head of the family. To him, this lawsuit was not a cry for reunification, it was rebellion. A wholesale attack on his authority and his own identity. Apparently, he called some of the kids who were involved and left furious, mumbling voicemails, charging them with betrayal and attempting to dismantle what was left of his family to Kody. This was not family affairs, it was combat. The ripple effects ravaged the broken family. Christine and Janelle, while empathizing with their children's suffering, were suddenly in a bind. They would inevitably be drawn in, either to testify or give evidence. Meri, long on the periphery, was said to have been left in the dark, a bitter reminder of how far she had dropped from favor. The lines were drawn on one side, Kody, Robyn, and 5 of their children in a defensive huddle. On the other, a group of over a dozen siblings with evidence, expert testifiers, and a desperate will to get back what they felt had been taken. The drama was about to unfold in a courtroom showdown. That would make the television Sister Wives wars look like games. This was no longer about family soap. It was about the very definition of family. The first shot out of the box, deflection, denial, and a war of words in court fights. The initial filing following a petition determines the tone. Kody and Robyn's lawyers, sources close to Arizona family law say, did not hesitate. They filed for a motion to dismiss virtually immediately. Their case rested on one predictable but powerful thesis, parental rights. Their attorneys maintained Kody and Robyn are good, capable parents. What the petitioners painted, they said, was not alienation, but parental discretion. Parents possess a constitutional right to determine who their children visit, under what conditions, and when. A reported excerpt from their motion to dismiss presented it thus: the petitioners, a group of adult siblings, are seeking to employ the court system to settle personal family complaints and to override the protective judgment of the children's parents. The respondents, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, have a fundamental right to protect their minor children from the emotional instability resulting from the very public collapse of their plural marriage. Kody and Robyn's lawyers boiled it down. Their decisions were in Solomon and Ariella's best interest emotionally, and those decisions were not open to adult half-siblings' criticism. They positioned themselves as guardians, the stars of the tale. In their account, Sol and Ari were being protected from Christine's resentments, Janelle's rebellion, and the toxicity of older siblings who had taken their side. It was a classic narcissistic defense, turning the victims into aggressors. In the background, the spin machine supposedly went into high gear. According to an insider, Kody and Robyn started actively vilifying the older children as unstable, menacing influences. They would cite Pedden's provocative online rants, or the open disrespect of their father by Garrison and Gabe, as so-called evidence these siblings were not safe around little kids. They distorted Gwen's blunt YouTube observations into evidence of a concerted smear campaign to destroy the family's reputation. They were creating a narrative, the insider told us. A narrative that went like this. Anyone who pushed back against Kody was a threat, and this lawsuit, Exhibit A in that instance. To friends who were still in her corner, Robyn allegedly said she was so scared. The older kids were attempting to kidnap Sol and Ari emotionally, turning them against their parents' classic projection. And Robyn, insiders note, was particularly good at peddling that narrative. But the elder siblings were ready. Their attorneys had cautioned them. Their lives would be picked apart, every flaw exaggerated, every error turned into a weapon, and yet they held fast. They knew what happened. More to the point, they had the evidence, years' worth of it. And when the judge dismissed Kody and Robyn's motion to dismiss, deciding that the case involved exceptional circumstances that required a hearing, the way was open. It was time for proof. The crushing silence. The petitioner's attorney arrived armed with an instrument. Kody and Robyn could not readily distort a chilly electronic record of their own silence. Insiders referred to it as the communication log, apparently running across several binders. The log chronicled each effort the older siblings had made for 2 to 3 years to access Solomon. And Ariella calls, texts, emails, invitations. It wasn't a timeline. It was an soul-destroying record of rejection. The log was broken down sibling by sibling, date by date, screenshots of text conversations, records of calls, copies of emails. Someone who said they'd witnessed it called it psychologically brutal to read. The birthday blackout. The log revealed a pattern: birthdays. For every one of the OG texts would be sent, either to family group text chains or to Kody and Robyn directly. Like from Aspen, "Hey, a few of us are having a bash for Michael T.'s birthday next Saturday. Only cake and gifts at the park. Nice and relaxed. I'd love to have Sol and Ari come so they can meet their nieces and nephew. Let me know if you can attend." No response. A few days later, a reminder. "Just wanted to check on McKelty's party. Hope you are doing okay." Once again, no response. This same cycle repeated for almost every sibling's birthday. The lawyer for the petitioners claimed this was not negligence. It was policy. The holiday heartbreak. Holidays, which were once the very essence of the Brown family identity, became yet another battlefield. One example, an email from Madison. "Hi everyone. With Christmas approaching, I wanted to coordinate the sibling gift exchange. Axel and Evie were so excited about picking gifts for all their cousins, uncles, and aunts. Madison said she was coordinating a timeline of video chats so that they could all open gifts together and inquired as to what time might be convenient for Sol and Ari to participate in a Zoom. Robyn's reported time. "That is a nice idea, Maddie. But our holidays will be extremely subdued and centered at home this year. The children are incredibly responsive to all the family tension, and we need to protect them from it. We'll exchange gifts for my side of the family." The lawyer's analysis was scathing. What Robyn had described as protection was really isolation. She was training Solomon and Ariella to view their extended family as a source of tension and negativity, which is a hallmark warning sign of parental alienation. And then there were the just because refusals, the most agonizing entries in the entire journal. These were the mundane, routine attempts at contact. A message from Gabe: "Hi Dad, I am in your neighborhood for a doctor's appointment. Can I swing by and see Sol and Ari for minutes and say hello? I miss them," Kody's purported reply. Hours later, "Not a good time. We're really busy." Isabel sent a letter to Robyn. "I have some old books I think Ari would love. Could I bring them by this week and read one with her?" No response came. This cycle continued to repeat itself over and over again. Dozens of tries, texts, phone calls, invitations resulted only in silence, weak excuses, abuses, or blatant rejection. The siblings offered love and a desire to maintain the relationships they'd grown up with. In turn, Kody and Robyn erected a wall when the petitioner's attorney introduced the log to the court. The summary was chilling. "Your Honor, this is not a communication log. It is a record of an amputation. It shows the systematic dismantling of a family, one neglected message at a time." For Kody and Robyn, this evidence was devastating. They couldn't reasonably claim to have been too busy to answer hundreds of messages over years. Denying that they hadn't gotten them was impossible against the evidence of the internet. All they could do was claim the overture wasn't real, that it was merely to create a spectacle, but the sheer number and the affection in most of the messages served to disprove that line of defense. Rather than presenting themselves as guardians, they appeared instead as gatekeepers, jailers of their own offspring's family relationships. The psychologist's damning testimony, while the communication log was the case's skeleton, the expert testimony was its living heartbeat. Due to the exceptional circumstances of the case, the court mandated an independent child psychologist, Dr. Eileen Sharma. Her responsibility wasn't taking sides, but assessing the potential damage to Solomon and Ariella. In accordance with a source who went through her findings, her report and deposition testimony were the turning point. Dr. Sharma began by describing the distinctive family dynamics within large plural homes. Within a typical nuclear family, according to her, parents are the chief attachment figures. Within an operating plural family, such as the Browns, however, a more complex network of attachment exists. Older siblings tend to become quasi-parental figures, providing guidance, reassurance, and belonging. To a child, such a sibling network is not secondary. It is home. It defines them and gives them their first example of relationships. Denying them access to that system, she said, is not akin to losing a connection with cousins. It is akin to removing them from their whole emotional and social universe. Even though Kody and Robyn denied permission for Solomon and Ariella to visit with her personally, Dr. Sharma had more than enough material to evaluate. She watched hours of early Sister Wives footage, family pictures, and interviewed several adult siblings and Christine and Janelle. Her core testimony, according to sources, was gut-wrenching. She pointed to many areas of great concern: identity lost. Dr. Sharma explained that by divorcing Sol and Ari, their parents were removing a core aspect of who they were. The children were being brought up to believe they were part of a small family of 7. Now they would be part of a significantly larger clan of. This, she contended, would cause profound confusion and sense of betrayal when they were older and discovered the truth. You can't keep siblings under wraps forever, she purportedly warned. The revelation, she said, would be traumatic and irreparably hurt their trust in their parents. Attachment disorders, she clarified that intentional isolation, as she termed it, equated to emotional abuse. By cutting off contact with a stable, loving group of siblings, the children were being primed for attachment problems. They were getting an unhealthy message that relationships could be cast aside and that love was only offered if they were compliant, accepted punishment, and played roles well above their age. Dr. Sharma questioned what was occurring within the home itself as well. Lacking a larger circle of family, the children were being overbonded with their mom, Robyn. In her opinion, their emotional health, she said, was becoming dependent on Robyn's emotional state. She cited what seemed to occur on the show when,